Happy June, everybody. I'm seeing two of me because it's on display. I don't know if you can hear this in the background, but there's a siren going off. So if you hear it, my apologies. I'm not being arrested or anything. I'm currently in Waco, and they're running the tornado test siren, which happens every Friday at 10 a.m. And I didn't remember that, even though I used to live in Waco, because it's been a while since I've been here on 10 a.m. on a Friday. So, welcome to Air Raid Siren time. We've got quite a few questions, so let's and actually a great solid crew. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, we've got Kevin, and I need to make this bigger. I completely left my reading glasses. There we go. That I just bought for the first time in my entire life 2 weeks ago. I left them back in Austin, of course. I'm going to admit Chris here. It feels to me like people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. With that, the expectation of results from advertising seems to also be turning to more, faster, more, faster. Are you experiencing this too? As I was contemplating this, I was reminded of Roy's chapter on the cocaine of advertising. Yeah, chapter 20 of The Wizard of Ads. But I don't think it's quite the same thing. I agree. It just feels to me like people are expecting fast results from their branding campaigns than they used to. Are people just twitchier? How are you folks handling this? Have you had to take a different approach to managing expectations? Okay, Kevin, you're unmuted. Let me see.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. Feel free to interact with me at any point as I say these things. But I'm going to answer with yes and no, which is a complete non-answer. But as fundamentally, no, I don't think anything's changed. I have lost count of the twitchy bastard stories I've heard from Roy that date back to the 80s, right? And they're identical to the ones that I hear from people now. They're different in no way whatsoever. It's always the same types of people that tend to be a little twitchy. It's always categories lend themselves to owners who are a little more twitchy than others. And it's pretty, not always, but it's relatively predictable based on the industry that they're in. So if they have a long purchase cycle, you have a better odds of them understanding long-term branding than if they have a 12-hour or 24-hour purchase cycle, like a restaurant or a bar. But at the same time, there's no way that you can ignore the fact that we have been practicing distraction as a species, as the internet has taken over everything. And so we've definitely sort of rewarded the part of our brains that has fun in Vegas, as opposed to have fun sitting in the living room and reading a book or something like that. And I'm sure that that's having an impact, but whatever it is, it's beyond our control, except as individuals, right? It's definitely beyond our control as far as like consultants. I'm like, we're going to fix that in somebody. And if I can't get, my own friends to put their phones away at a dinner table without being like, hey, I'm definitely not going to be able to get a client to think differently about it. What I would say is I haven't had to deal with this problem with any of the clients that I have currently had. And I have, again, I'll repeat this every time. I am in a luxurious position that I don't work at a radio station and I get to go pick a client and then deny a client if I don't want a client. And I understand that that's a position of privilege, definitely. And so I tend to pick the people. As soon as I get the sense that someone's a little twitchy, I'm like, you know what? You're better off over here. And I just kind of pass them along. But if I was running accounts and I didn't have that choice, you just kind of have to treat them differently. And I would say it's not a fix and it's not a cure, but the only thing I have ever seen work, and I might see if Paul wants to horn in on this one too. The only thing I've ever seen work is Babe Ruth it. Call the shot before it happens. Because if you call a shot after it happens, no one believes you. Then it's the difference between Babe Ruth and Pee Wee Herman, which is a joke that won't make sense to anybody. below a certain age at this point, but you can either say, here's where I'm headed and here's where we're headed and here's what's going to happen. Or you can say, I meant to do that. And you get a very different response from those two things. And the first one is like, hey, hey, Paul. Hi,
Sorry about
Daniel.
that.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Stay there. That's fine.
Okay, well,
I mean, you look better than I do. So, um, with my clients, I say, here's what we need to do, and here's why it's going to take a while. If we were going to do something short, it would work really quick and then increasingly work less, and less. The cocaine analogy, right? But what we're going to do is try to establish long-term relationship. And just like dating, if you haven't built the groundwork, then you can't have a sustainable relationship. And so we're going to build the groundwork. And that means that we're going to have a little bit of delayed gratification in a way that we wouldn't if we weren't interested in a long-term relationship. And there's not enough people in this town for you to keep having one-night stands with people. It's just, that's not a way to build a business, right? And so what's going to happen is we're going to do this, this, and this. And about 3 months in, you're going to feel like you've blown 3 months of your advertising budget on almost nothing. And somewhere around month 4, 5, 6, it's going to start to turn, and then it's going to have a very real impact. And basically between now and 6 months from now, I need you to know, like, on those days, you're not going to be able to stop it. On the days when you feel like the world's coming apart and you're like, what have I done? Please call me. And you can yell, we can bitch about it, you can complain, but know at the end of it, after I stop nodding and listening, I'm going to say, hey, remember when we talked about this? And if you want, I can give you countless examples of other clients and exactly like, we started it here. This is when it started to turn. Here's a client. Started it here. This is when it began to turn. Here's another client. This started here. This is when it began to turn. And very rarely do we see things happen sooner than that. It's just the effect of real relationship building. Anything else is bar hookups and one night stands. And that's not what we're in the business of. There are people that will absolutely do that for you, just like there are people that will sell you a book on pickup artist lines and how to close the deal, right? But we're just not one of those people. So if that's what you're looking for, I can create some of those things, but you're going to last here the same 6-month window. And that's what I've always found. If we start doing that shit for you, you will also be pissed off in 6 months, but it'll be because all of that quick fix stuff stopped working. And your only solution is going to be to start the thing we should have done at the beginning. And now you're another 6 months out from long-term branding again. Or you're going to skip from our station to another station and try it again. And you're just going to keep marketing hopping, looking for that new fix. And I know it sounds brutal, but we always say this. Roy has said this. It's the risk of insult is the price of clarity. That is the only way I have ever found to get people on board with those kinds of things. I've tried other ways. I haven't found them. Every once in a while, I'll give somebody a quick fix. That's such a really weird line out of context. Every once in a while, I have the Iron Root that I've talked about, the whiskey distillery that I'm working with. That's a pretty quick turnaround in that business. A lot of bar and distillers are like, we need to get people to go in the store and buy the bottle right now. We have a new release. We need to get them to buy that one. We have a new release. Now we need to get them to buy that one. And I've got them trained away from that. But about every 2 or 3 months, he'll come to me and he'll go, hey, it's not me, but the retailers and my sales staff are like begging and I need to try to keep them happy. And so I'll write like one quick, like, all right, give them this one little thing. It'll be one little call to action and we'll just let it do some stuff for them so that they feel like they're heard by you. And then we're going to go back to the normal thing. And that's worked. So like sometimes cold turkey is the wrong answer. Sometimes you got to wean them off of those quick fix ads by like doing them in a ratio of like, I'm going to do a long-term branding. Okay, fine. I'll give you one. Okay. Now we're back to long-term branding. Does that feel like an answer, Kevin?
Yeah, and you said something kind of. I want to ask you if you've ever said this to a client, but to say, advertising is building relationships. Do you want a whole bunch of one night stands, or do you want to start a family that grows? Have you ever said that to somebody?
Yes, every client. Full stop. It is the fastest analogy. It's brutal, but it's the fastest analogy. It's like if you're looking for hookups, I'm the wrong guy. I'm the long-term relationship guy. I have been since my first girlfriend in ninth grade.
And I'll add to that, Kevin. That's where the first conversation that you have with this client or the clients is critical. This is how we're going to do it. This is what you can expect. Remember this day, June 6th, whatever it is, June 6th. Remember this date. This is when I said X, Y, and Z, and say it like 5 times. And then down in August when they say, well, what's going on? You can say, remember June 6th? Remember that conversation? Yeah, we're in that period right now, or that's what's happening. I need you to stay that focused. So combining that with what Daniel just said, those two things, I've had very little troubles with the twitchy little bastards and such.
You know, my favorite one that I've done, and this one I got as an idea from, not on purpose, but from Brian Brushwood, the magician who's on our board of directors and the instructor at Wizard Academy. And he didn't mean it like this, but I used this trick like that. And it was, sorry, I found a mosquito I'm trying to get rid of. It was that I wrote on a piece of paper, right now, you are probably calling me freaking out about this thing. My guess is it's June, July at the latest. And at that point, you're going to open this letter and then you're going to call me and we're going to both laugh, because now you're going to be prepared for the conversation where I'm going to say some version of I told you so in the nicest way possible. And I wrote that on a note and I put it in an envelope and sealed it. And I handed it to him at the uncovery day. And I was like, if we work together, there's going to be a day when I say, open this letter. And when you do, it'll be great. So he ended up making it to August. And then he was freaking out. He's like, dude, we need to talk. I don't think this is working. And I was like, okay, let's meet this afternoon at 3. Before then, open the letter. And then when he called me at 3, he was cracking up and he was like, you're right. What other, we are. And I was like, take the fear numbers off and go look at the books. Because if your P&L really is like tanking, then you're right. We have a problem. But if it just feels not the same, but if you go look at your numbers, they're okay. And or growing, then like, let's keep going. Let's keep rocking this thing. And that I've only done that once, and I only did it because I knew he had a reasonable ego, and he wasn't going to get offended by the "I told you so." We kind of had a prior relationship through Wizard Academy as a student and instructor, so I had a little more leverage as opposed to just some knucklehead who sold them on advertising. I mean, not that you're a knucklehead, Kevin. But damn you! Cool. Does that give you any hope or any clarity?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes it's just to say those things out loud is helpful. Craig Sullivan and Sandy Reed, who are either on here. No, usually
I don't believe so.
No. What do you do to prepare for an uncovering meeting with a client? Ooh, I love this. Do you do any specific recon? Yes. Do you prepare the client in any particular way? No. How do you determine what kinds of questions you're going to ask them? They're always the same. Does some of this prep change based on your goals with that particular client? Yes, but in the second half. I'm going to clarify all of this. How do you know when you're ready to sit down with them? Okay, that's a lot of questions. Can you bring that back up? So I don't miss any of them, Paul? Thank you. Okay, what do I do to prepare? And I'm going to do my best to answer the question as asked and not change the question. What do you do to prepare for an uncovering meeting with a client? I do recon, like they said there. I Google the environment. I try to look at, like, if I Google their product in their area, what are my own personal Google results and who am I finding? What page are they on? Have they done the work to, like, is their website functional? Is it navigational? Navigatable?
Navigatable.
Navigatable. Are their Google business filled out? Are there any articles about them? Have they shared anything that was more than just bullshit promo? If I can find ads, are they twitchy ads, or are they like, oh, that's actually pretty good? How far am I gonna have to take this client into understanding how we work from where they currently are? Like, is it gonna be a heavy lift, or when they walk in, can I go, I really love what you did here, here, and here? So yeah, you are You cannot have a great, successful uncovery day with a client if you are not prepared, in my opinion. I mean, maybe if you're smarter than I am or quicker on your feet than I am, you can just pivot in the moment, raw, nonstop. But I have not found that to be the case. I have found that I need a minimum of an hour of research and preferably 2 or 3 hours of just writing notes and looking around and answering my own questions about. And what I'm trying to learn is like, who is this person? How are they presenting themselves? And are they operationally sound? Those are my 3 questions that I'm asking. So who are they presenting themselves as? And I can sometimes get that from interviews they do. How are they presenting their business to the world? I can get that from their ads. And 3, are they operationally sound? I can get that from their Google and all of their places they're present online. Like, are they attended to? Because we always say if the business isn't operationally sound, marketing is just going to destroy it faster. And sometimes, so I'll go in there prepared for somebody who really wants me to make some magic happen, but they're not prepared to execute on it. And most of the time I'm right. And sometimes I find that they like hired a nephew who doesn't know what he's doing, and they know he's fucking it up, but they need to fire him. They don't know how. And that's a different conversation.
I would add to that, Daniel, in terms of preparing for the uncovery with the client, is I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the online stuff, is look at every review that they have online, and also look at how do they respond if they respond. What is the language that they use or don't use? That will tell you a great deal as well. And also,
because
their competitors,
they're going to respond to you that way.
Exactly.
And then the questions I ask them are always the same. I have a whole set of things that I go through, and they are, and everybody does this differently. So there's no one right way to do this. I have my own approach. I'm sure Paul has his own approach. My approach is that I don't do well listening to people if I'm also trying to accomplish something like practical and a checklist. And so I sort of sit back. I have my idea of what I'm trying to accomplish in my head, and then I hit record on my laptop or on a phone or something, and then I just lean back in the chair and I just try to get to know them. I just nonstop ask questions for hours. The last one I did was 3 weeks ago, and I asked questions from 9 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. and didn't write anything. Every once in a while, I'd write something down, but mainly I was just like a timestamp for me, like, oh, go to this time, that thing's important. Go to this time, that thing's important. And it was just getting to know them. It's like, hey, so what do you do? Tell me about why you do what you do. Why did you get into that? Like, who goes, did you like, wake up and you're like 9, you're like, I'm going to be an HVAC. Like, and they're like, oh, no, Cora. And then they tell you this whole story. And then you're like, wow, your dad got into it. How did he get into it? And then turn to their spouse and be like, hey, what does it feel to be an HVAC widow with your husband's always gone fixing everyone's? How's your AC at the house? Is it good? You have a nice one? And they're like, no, he's always doing it and you have this whole conversation. And then I talk about like, who's your favorite competitor? Like the one that you're technically competing with, but you hang out with them or you look forward to seeing them. Or if you're at events, you guys are actually kind of buddies and you sometimes call each other with questions and they're like, oh yeah. And if they can't name one, that's a huge red flag for me. Because in a normal industry, in any town, the people all doing the same business do kind of get to know each other. And if you find that this guy's like, everyone else are assholes and I'm the only real dude, then I run from that client real fast. But if that client is like, oh man, I'm friends with like 7 of them, then I'm like, okay, good. So there's things but what I'm trying to understand, and I'm trying to answer a question as asked, I'm trying to understand who are they and what's their vibe? What's their ego? Just like dating, would I want to hang out with this person? Do I enjoy being around them? Are they an asshole or are they kind? And then 2, I'm trying to understand, do they have, how self-aware are they of their own situation and where they're at and what they want? Are they being honest with themselves about what they want? And then 3, I'm trying to find out, if I'm going to try to get them to execute stuff, what are the likelihood that they're going to follow through and it's going to get done?
And
that's really the only 2 things I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, and all those, what I hear Daniel also saying is ask listen, ask, listen, ask, listen. Dive deeper and deeper and deeper into that one topic, and you'll learn a whole heck of a lot. Also, though, talking about the execution of things, ask them to tell you a time where they had a great idea and they executed, or they had a great idea and they didn't execute, and ask why, what happened, why did you execute, why did you not execute, and what happened afterwards.
Yeah.
But really understand how they operate as a human being and also as a business owner. Daniel, do you mind if I mention Tim Miles' book?
Oh, no, please.
Well, I just did, but actually, I'll just go get it. So,
yeah, you guys, this is a nonprofit, so I can't legally say go buy a book, but I can say for more information that's very helpful on this topic, see this book by Tim Miles, is one of our partners. Brand your own business.
And he also has a workbook itself, but in this book, it gives you a lot of information on how to basically answer all these questions. And you'll be amazed at that. But everything what Daniel just said, absolutely true. Ask, and ask.
And then I always find that like I get a lot of information from that one, and periodically I'll interrupt and I'll go, that reminds me of this thing that we always say here that I always teach at Wizard Academy, which is, and I'll get in these little nuggets of belief. And I only say them when I know that when I finish saying it, their response is going to be like, yeah, totally. And all I'm using them for is to help them understand how I operate, but also to reinforce that we operate, that we both believe the same thing. But that only works if I actually do agree with them. And what was the last one? My prep does not change based on my goals with the client. I do the same prep when I have told them I have no intention of working with you as a client. I'm going to give you one day. I'm going to give you all the advice I can after lunch, and then we're going to part ways. I do the same prep for that as I do for an ongoing client, and it doesn't matter what industry they're in. It's the same. It's just the same. How do I know when you're ready to sit down? When they write a check. And that's where we probably differ. And so for me, it's I name a really high price. And if they're like, ooh, then I know they're not ready. And if they go, all right, how do you want to handle that? Then I go, okay, then you're ready to have a serious talk. And even if it doesn't go the way that we want or we don't end up working together, I know that they're going to take it seriously. Now, I'm assuming, and Sandy's not on here, I'm assuming, though, that Sandy, if I remember, is one of the reps in the radio station. And so she doesn't get to tell them to write her a check. And so how would you know someone's ready?
They come to you.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a cop-out, but no, what I was about to say is I was about to use the sentence, those people convinced against their will remain unconvinced still.
Yep.
And so it's like when you're trying to sell a business, if you convince them to meet with you, that doesn't mean anything at all. But if you can find a way to be a resource to them, and then you say some version of like, man, if you ever have an hour or two, I could share so much valuable stuff for you that would really solve a lot of these little small things, even if you don't advertise with our station.
That is one of the best ways to go about it, is be the resource and say, hey, I'm here when you're ready. Otherwise, you're just chasing your tail, and it's a waste of time.
And in the meantime, just be a friend, check in every single month with them, preferably in person if you're local, and just pop in the business and be like, hey, how are you guys doing? I love that latte. Or, hey, I love your air conditioning display. No, I'm just kidding. It's kind of hard to do that with service companies. But yeah, but just somehow be in front of them regularly. And every time you're in front of them, be a resource. Hey, what I used to do in the music business was I would send to clubs, hey, I don't know if you guys know about this artist, but they're coming to town. And I know they have a couple of days off, and you don't know this, but they have a huge following, and here's their contact info if you guys are looking to book an extra night. And I would just keep sharing resources with the club owners, because a lot of club owners aren't up to date on who the cool band coming through town is and which one has a real following versus which one has a cool website. And so just being the one who knows the local scenes and knows the bands And then I would do that for all my Austin bands when they were traveling. If I had ever played at a club, I would reach out to the club and be like, hey, a good friend of mine's coming to town. He's got a solid fan base. If you've never heard of him, you're going to wish you had heard of him way earlier. Here's his contact info. And then the bands fell in love with me. And I did this for bands that didn't even know me that well, but we had like played a bill together and they were awesome. And then later they would come to me back in Austin. They'd be like, dude, you got us a gig in Atlanta. That was fucking awesome. And they reached out to us. They said you called them. And I was like, yeah, I did. And then they're like, hey, we're playing this show for South by Southwest. Do you want to join us for this showcase? And then bam, there you go. And I didn't have to beg, borrow, or steal to get into things like that. Just show up and be a resource. Hopefully that helps Craig and Sandy. We're taking a lot of time on these questions. How many do we have, Paul? 7?
We have a total of 7. Oh, wait, hold on.
Okay.
I, a little too far. Here we go.
Chris, is it Aparicio with the S sound? Where I know Chris is not here.
Aparicio.
Aparicio. Okay, thank you.
Aparicio.
I feel like I asked you this. This is probably the third time I've asked this question. Sorry, I apologize. Wizards, most of my business is with long-term clients. They've been through our uncovery. We continue to ensure their credit strategy is on point with monthly check-ins and formal annual brand checkup meetings. Yes. I have some clients that are getting increasingly difficult to nail down meetings with, and we want to ensure that they are involved in the creative process. Yes. Have you ever had to get a client re-engaged in the process? What do you do? Don't get them re-engaged in the process. Get them re-engaged with you as a person. That's it. That when speaking as, chancellor at Wizard Academy, even, oftentimes the times that I'm succeeding at what I should be doing with my job is when I'm out of the process. And I'm empowering my people to start handling shit. And anybody who wants to bypass my people and drag me back into the process is going to be viewed by me as going like, dude, I'm trying to have a healthy lifestyle right now. I can't, I've got people handling that, right? And so similar to what I said just a second ago with Sandy, it is stay connected with them, but as a resource. And if they have demonstrated that being a part of your ongoing process is no longer being viewed as a resource to them, but just something else that happens in the business, then you know how we're always talking about the trick with a brand is to get the customer to fall in love with you first. And then it's not to sell your product, it's get them to like you. This is at that transition, your only job is to get them to like you. Is to just call in, check in. If you know anything about them, check in on their kids and just say, hey, everything's going great. I'm really proud of these things we're doing for you guys. I hope all is well. I saw so-and-so, your niece just won a baseball tournament. Congratulations, right? And then if you can ever get them on the phone, you're just like, hey, I'm just checking in. Things are going great. I've got nothing to report. I have no questions. I just wanted to make sure there's nothing that's been hanging that you're like, oh, I keep meaning to call Chris, but you're so busy, you haven't gotten around to it. I'm making myself available. Is there anything that I need to be looking at or paying attention to that you've been meaning to ask me? And you never remember when it's, business hours. You only remember that at 11 o'clock at night when you're trying to go to sleep. And so that's it. Just don't try to drag them back into anything they left. Just try to stay connected with them, even if it's a one-way relationship, in ways that are authentic. And eventually, if anyone tries to cut you loose, there's going to be a level of affection they have for you that's going to be like, wait, hold on. I'm not against, I've empowered you guys. And if you want to cut them loose, we'll talk. But that's not the Chris I know. Right. And yeah, so just same thing, relationship and connection. It's really the only way to pull that off. I had to do this. I say that because I had to do this year for the last 3 months, and it's coming back around again. So I had a owner who, against my requests, hired a marketing director, and then put them between us. And I had to talk with them, going like, "Look, if you're doing this, then I don't really answer to you anymore." And so we're not, but so it went off the rails a little, and I just stayed. I kept all the problems off their plate. I didn't go over the marketing director's head, but I still every week I just called this person and said, "Hey, man, I've got no work, no business. I just wanted to check in. You came to mind. I want to see how you're doing." And they would bitch about "Oh, this thing came apart. No, this thing is that's terrible." Well, my thoughts were, I hope that works out for the grand. And I didn't bring up any business at all. And I did that for the last 2.5 months. And this week, literally Monday, he called me up And he's like, so we fired that marketing guy. I know you didn't like him, but we need to get together and talk about a new plan. And I was like, hey, I'm in. When do you want to talk? Yeah. So, and that only happened because I didn't turn myself into another enemy, and he didn't have to feel like he had to eat crow to come back and talk to me again, because we had a relationship. Is that helpful?
It does.
Okay. Good. All right. Next question. Notice that I always feel like I'm a broken record, but like all of the answers to questions that you will get from Wizard Academy almost always come back to relationship and people. Just over tricks.
Business and profit.
Yeah, or over,
Transaction.
here's 5 ways to get your client to love you. Zing, zang, boom. Right? It's just like, hey, relationships are hard work. Welcome to it.
It's a marriage.
Grant Langford. All right, Grant. My question is an extension of the ad budget calculator we discussed last month. Great. I understand that the really complicated contractor type of businesses that you discussed last month are maybe not a good fit for the ad budget calculator. That's fair. What are your thoughts with plumbing and heating or electrical type businesses that could maybe split the product and services out? I need some clarity on that, Grant. And so, like, do you mean that they can split if they have multiple income streams? They can sort of silo.
Yeah, I guess the ad budget calculators became a topic of discussion here with our teams, and Roger had sent that question in last week.
Yeah,
and or last month, and the discussion kind of said, well, on those big contractor type it's hard to come up with an ad budget calculator for that, but. The discussion in some of our team meetings were, so you have a plumbing and heating company that sells a furnace, and they have small, tiny margins on the actual furnace, but they have substantial margins on their service side. So when there's companies that just have maybe a service and a parts or a equipment, do you use the ad budget calculator in those instances where you maybe split and then combine or merge, or?
Yeah,
That's kind of
I
the
have a
question.
handle on an answer for that. Paul, did you want to play the recap of that so anybody who's just watching this knows the context?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, and we'll come back to
Okay,
the question.
How should a person go about calculating an ad budget for a construction company that specializes in light, medium-sized industrial projects? Ad budget calculator doesn't seem to apply very well to this type of company whose revenues are very high, but profit margins are very thin. A typical project for these would be a 1 to 3 million, but probably you probably estimate like a 20% profit margin on things like that, because you're talking about metal and concrete. And if it was up to me, and I think I would just say your actual profit margins, run your ad revenue based on those numbers. Like, what is a budget with this profit margin? Forget the income, right? Take all the cost of goods out and then operate on the same level that a business of that profit margin would operate at. I said not profit, like not looking at the percentage, but like if your profit margin is you're a $300,000 a project or a $200,000 project and you clear that much a year, that's your actual numbers for the ad budget calculator, as opposed to the invoice that you send out. Okay, so that bald guy's super handsome, but whoever he was, brilliant.
Whoever that was.
So I have 2 examples of this, and hopefully one of them will address the question, because I'm a little muddy still, but I think I'm getting there. I do have a business that has plumbing and HVAC as 2 separate trucks, separate teams, separate team meetings. And even though it's one company, we run their ads separately and their ad budgets separately. So they have organized their company so that they know their margins with HVAC and they know their margins with plumbing, and we run our ad budgets split kind of across those 2. Now, I don't run my costs that way. So our monthlies are the same based on the whole company income, right? But when we start giving them advice on radio, media buy, what can you afford to spend, they've got it so successfully broken apart that we actually created 2 media buys, even though it's the same company. And we're sort of, we only do that internally. We don't tell the radio station that. The radio station gets one check and we hand them different ads. But internally, we're sort of monitoring the health of the ad budget through whether or not this side can afford it. Now, I know there are other ones who, and I think this is closer to maybe what you're asking, where they run everything as one company. Their margins on this one thing are shit, but that's fine because they're going to make up for it over here. Just like any HVAC, your margins on testing the equipment and servicing it are nothing. But if you can sell them a new air conditioning unit, that's where the money is. But I'm not going to run the ad budget based on of their margins of their sales of a air conditioner. I'm going to run it on the whole company.
And Grant, what I kind of hear you saying maybe is you're trying to get down to the nitty gritty of, well, how much do I spend over here on this stuff, and how much do I spend on this stuff? And really, what I agree with Daniel in regards to the ad budget as a whole is, if you're doing it right, yeah, you're going to be spending money for these things in HVAC, the service and such, because it leads to the higher ticketed items. So you may feel like you're losing money over here, but long term, those are the lead magnets, the lead KPIs versus the lagging. So spend the money on the cheaper things because you know it's going to come back and fill up the tank. Is that kind of accurate, or do you think you're kind of getting too deep into it?
Yeah, I think that helps. I mean, I guess there was a few different examples that came up in our group meeting. One was plumbing and heating company that sells like I said, a furnace that has low margins, but their service is where they're making their money. So what you're saying for that is, when you're using ad budget calculator terminology with a client or try to get to it for your own head, is just like, what did that whole package cost?
Yeah.
Service and furnace combined, and what was your margins on that whole complete, like, cost you this, you made this. Don't try to split them out.
Yeah, don't split it out.
You've also helped me with, there's another one of my clients that I had was it's a sporting goods company in Regina that they're predominantly, well, I shouldn't say predominantly, they're a bike store, but they sell hockey, baseball, and everything else. And depending on who you are in the community, most people think they're a sporting goods store and don't even know they sell bikes if you're a hockey, baseball dad. And then the biking community knows that if you go through whatever this other shit is on the main floor and head upstairs to where the good stuff is, that's the bikes, right? So that's the other one that I was working with. And that might be more towards your point, Daniel, about HVAC and plumbing, where you might have to split it out a bit and say, okay, where are you really making your money? Where's your margins? What's your revenue? And
I would say that, like, make sure that they know that, like, that's not how you're going to present it to the station. The station's going to get one budget, but that you're going to be breaking it down in these ratios as far as how much each commercial is going to air. Or
Daniel, I actually have a question for you. Why do you, for the media buy, why do you not separate them out and you just say, here's one check, here's the ads?
For me? Are you talking to me? Or for
your client, for your client who has plumbing and HVAC. I'm curious, why do you do that?
Why do I separate it internally, not with the radio?
Right, but with the radio station, why do you not separate it out?
The
reason.
Because I don't want them to have opinions.
Okay. Good enough. I was just curious.
I don't have any other reason except that. It's like, I don't want them to start trying to run my bench.
There you go.
Right?
Good reason.
So I don't want another committee decision on, like, well, and my experience is that anything that gets complex encourages people to have opinions. Whereas if it's something simple, people kind of stay out of the way. And you can impress people with a much bigger check, or two smaller checks don't feel as big, even though they add up to the same amount of money.
Fair enough.
That's why. There's no science behind it. It's just feelings.
I figured somebody else, if I had the question, someone else had the question. So
yeah. Grant, you good?
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers. Trish, I'm not even going to try. And Trish, you're on here. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to try.
You should try. It's not hard.
Is it not hard? Is it Desperado?
Yeah, that's Baratco.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris. Somehow I failed at your name, but I nailed Trish's right off. Okay.
Yeah.
When selling a campaign that features the business owner or their designate actually voicing the ads, is it better to have actors voice the ads or to be presented as spec, or is it better to present them with a script so they can read it and hear their own voice? Always present only a written script, never spec the ads ever. Even no matter what happens, no matter how good they are, they're going to be comparing themselves to whatever you spec'd. And you're going to be like, no, you're so much better. And they're never going to hear it. Whereas if they've never had something to compare themselves to, then you're going to be like, that was a much better delivery than the one you did just a second ago. And they'll hear you and believe it. But if they have something in their head they're holding themselves up against, then you'll never make them feel confident about what they recorded. And we can say until we're blue in the face, professional voiced ads don't work. Your flawed human, actual person voice works. And man, business owners just don't believe us. And so, in my experience, anytime I've had something like this where we've had to transition from actor ads to owner ads, and that's one of the hardest things to do in the entire world because no one likes to hear their own voice. Every time you hear it on a recording, you're like, is that really me? Now, Paul and I are different probably because we see ourselves on camera, or me, I've been a recording artist so I've been listening to playbacks of my own voice since I was 12 years old. I still hate it.
Yeah.
I still objectively step back and like, okay, all right.
So even if they are comfortable voicing and have voiced their own ads in the past, when you're taking them in a new direction, don't spec it.
I would read it badly yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
If I were you, I would say, hey, I'm going to put this in front of you. I'm going to read it out loud to you in the vibe that I'm kind of hearing. And I'm going to do it badly. You're going to do it so much better. But I'm going to try to give you a sense of the rhythm and the energy and how I think this could be delivered. And then you're going to voice it right there over the phone or in person. You're both going to laugh at the weird voices you use. And I will tell you personally, the more ridiculous you can be, the easier it will be for them. If you are willing to be completely ridiculous and absurd and silly, it takes all the energy out of the room. So whatever you do, don't try to deliver it professionally. Just be ridiculous. And it takes all the energy off of performance. Now we're just laughing and recording shit. Yeah. But definitely don't prep the ad.
Thank you.
On the other hand, I have recorded it for my ears only to see if it works. Right? Like I've had, especially if I have access to a free studio and it's like, hey, does anybody have like 15 minutes? Can you come here with me and read this with me? Because I think like the wording's not right and the pacing's not right. So like we're going to record it and then we're going to go stand in here and listen back to it until we get it right. And I know what I'm looking for and then delete those never to be heard again. But you can only get, especially on dialogue ads, it's impossible to get those written correctly without hearing them and trying them with somebody. It's just not. You're going to read it one way on the page, and then you're going to bring it to the client, and you're going to be in the studio discovering that your pacing's all wrong. And it's not their fault, not because they're bad at recording. It's because you put too many words in that sentence, or you put this syllable after that syllable, and it's hard to connect those in, not in your mind, but it is on the paper. Anyway, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Good. Finally, a clear answer. Jeff Gross. Gross, what wisdom do you share with prospects that believe radio is only effective for B2C? I'm running into more and more businesses that only offer products or services to other businesses, and they believe radio is an ineffective B2B marketing. We have our standard rebuttals, but I'm curious how you've successfully handled this. And the answer is unpredictably. As you've experienced, I'm sure, this is one of those myths that is so hard to get out of people's minds that, like, when you try to correct it, you sound like the boy who cried wolf, or like, he thinks does protest too much. And, well, you've obviously got a bone in this because you're a radio, and like, there's just no winning. the same arguments that I'm sure you've done which is what we teach at the academy. Businesses aren't robots. Well, I mean, some of them are, but the businesses you're trying to reach are not just only staffed with robots. There are people there, and people listen to the radio. There's no such thing as B2B marketing when it comes to how you convince people to do things. There is a difference on how someone's motivated. And so this is where I've actually won someone over, because if you just start with that first half of that argument, then people think you're being argumentative. Look, it's still people, man. Come on, what do you think? Only robots run that place? And you're like, God, no one's going to listen to that. But if you say there is a difference in B2B, but surprisingly, it doesn't have anything to do with how we reach people. It has to do with how we talk to them when we reach them. And so we effectively reach B2B not by changing the medium, because human beings encounter advertising in all the same spaces, whether it's personal or whether it's on their way to work. It doesn't matter. They're all going to encounter the same ads. And you might be on your way home to mow your lawn and you hear an ad for a landscaping company, and that's great. Or you might be on your way to your job where it's your job to procure all the IT for your local blah, blah, blah company. Either way, you're listening to the same radio station. So the question isn't where do we reach them? We know radio is the most effective tool. The question is, what do we say? Because someone's motivations about themselves are very different than their motivations in the workplace. And every study that has ever been done shows that you almost change personalities when you go to work. Like when we have people take MBTI tests, if they answer it in the frame of mind of how I do my job, they will come out with one very different answer compared with who I prefer to be at home with the people who love me. And we have to address that in our marketing. One of the greatest ads, and I think I've talked about it on this environment before, I think it was IBM. No one got fired for buying IBM. It was in the 80s or early 90s. There was an ad, and that was the ad. It was in a magazine. Just said no one got fired for buying IBM, and it was in a trade magazine. And there's no one on the planet that goes home and thinks, I'm going to buy IBM so I don't get fired. But there are plenty of people in specific jobs who go to work who just got handed a $50,000 budget and said, get us new computers. And their greatest fear is that they're going to fuck up that $50,000 budget and get held responsible and get fired. Whereas why they might buy a laptop for home, they're going to buy Apple or, but like for work, and like, well, we want stability, predictability, ease of use. We want, all those things. And so the only time it's ever worked for me is when I delivered that storyline, which is, you're right, B2B marketing is completely different. It's different in how we talk and in what we say and in what concerns we address. Yeah. How people hear it, irrelevant.
It's the message, not the medium. And
it's the message.
I have a B2B client that's national, and that's exactly the same thing. They said, oh, well, we do Google AdWords and we do this, do that. Like, okay, well, what are your areas? Now this is national, so it's a little bit easier if you're just local. But I said, okay, well, let's run an experiment in this city. Let's use radio and write this ad as if you're writing to this person. And that made all the difference. I said, it doesn't matter if it's radio or this or AdWords or anything else. It's the message that you get across. Exactly what Daniel said.
Yeah. I hope that's helpful. And what are the lines that you've used?
Those are the two ones that I'll make sure the creative is damn clear, that you're a B2B business. You're not, the latest example is HVAC. They don't want Joe Blow that lives down the street calling to fix their furnace. They want to service big rooftop units. Right. We'll say that in the commercial. And then, they're humans. But they're so fearful they're going to get calls from people who aren't their client base.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we're on the same page, which is helpful.
Question that you can maybe ask them even is, okay, and what happens if you do get a call from somebody who's not your clientele? What's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah, you have to say no.
You simply know that, oh, hey, this message is working or whatnot. That's something.
Someone got motivated.
Yeah.
Would love to have some local company that's like, we refer all of our non-commercial calls to this guy.
Yeah. And actually, I would recommend that is if you do have somebody who you can tell them, or they have somebody that they can refer somebody, they become the resource. And maybe, again, going back to what we said earlier in this, during this session, is it comes down to relationships. And if you can be the resource, you're golden.
You know what would be hilarious is if the company did that, and then the day they tried to start backing off their radio ads, it's that random residential guy who calls them and is like, "What the fuck are you doing? You're my primary source of advertising."
That almost happened actually with me.
Cool. All right, Jeff.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck
Thanks,
with
Jeff.
that.
Last one.
We got the Kevin bookends. That's a good day. I'm a traditional radio guy, so clearly I have a bias, but I'm curious. Do the Wizard Partners buy Spotify, Pandora, or run digital radio? I'm going to say. What are the pros, cons, audio streaming? The answer is we aggressively recommend against it. And it's not because the people aren't listening, and it's not because ads don't work on digital. It's because so far, and maybe they've changed this recently, but I'm talking 5-6 years ago, I had this conversation with somebody who was trying to figure out Pandora and like get it down. Like they were going to be the ones who are going to master the Pandora and the Spotify. Those guys are not designed to do the scheduling in a way that gets us the guaranteed rep with a specific set of ears in the way that we can with terrestrial radio. And even the reports don't look at that. Like you would think that they would be able to tell us this IP heard this ad this many times, and they should, but none of them have designed any of their sales reports to show any of that data. And part of me thinks it's because they don't want it seen, but I don't have anything to prove that. But there's no way to buy a package from them with guaranteed time of day, ear rep, IP rep. That just don't even sell that package. They sell number of times it was played. That's effectively it. And so if you could blanket it and you can afford a high 6-figure budget so that it doesn't matter and you're running one an hour, no matter what, maybe you'll get the reps. But like for real small businesses, it's not practical. And again, it has nothing to do with whether or not people are listening. They are. It has to do with you can't guarantee hitting the same person at the way you can on morning drive time slots, evening drive time slots, lunchtime time slots, things
It's
like
like
that.
throwing spaghetti against the wall. You just don't know. Is it going to stick or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as doing like buying ads on websites. It's like you got no idea the reps on those things, and when you get the report from that website, they're just going to tell you impressions, and that's it. And that's basically the kind of reports you get from Pandora and Spotify. If they ever change that and they can run IP level reports, that's a new ballgame. And on that day, I would actually consider it. Absolutely. YouTube, strangely, if you play with it enough and you figure out where to change your settings, you can specify people who follow other channels. So like at one point I ran ads for the Whiskey Vault and Whiskey Marketing School, and I managed to select only people who are also subscribed to the Whiskey Tribe YouTube channel and the Whiskey Vault channel, because that was and it worked. Like the clicks actually went up significantly all of a sudden. And they don't want you to do that, and there's nowhere to select that, but you can do it in the background by changing like 8 different menu settings until it sort of self-selects out and only includes these 2 subscriptions. They may have fixed that, and then it won't work anymore. But yeah. Is that helpful, Kevin?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, good. Okay. Man, these are good questions, guys. Hopefully they were reasonable answers. This was a fun one. Next month, little PSA, the Friday happens to fall on the 4th of July, which for many of the people on this call is irrelevant. But it's not for me and my team, so we are going to move it from Friday to Thursday, the 3rd. So we'll remind you when the email goes out, hey, don't forget, it's Thursday, not Friday. but next only in July. Well, for now, July will be July 3rd instead of July 4th. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. Send in more great questions, and I'll see you soon.